Thank you. What we're talking about this weekend is how you find relevance in life. That is the most sought after thing by every man, woman, and child on the planet. All you have to do is look at their lives. Everybody wants to be known. Everybody wants to have a life that is meaningful, maybe for some just to themselves. But they want a life that makes a difference. And so they go through life seeking all avenues to try to bring a sense of relevance, that thing that says, I'm of value to society, that thing that says, people want me, people need me, I can make a difference in society. That's what relevance is, and we all seek that. But unfortunately, it's almost elusive. And my life is an example of that. When I sat on my high school graduating platform with all my fellow buddies, and I look to the future. You know how it is. You use your imagination when you're at a crossroad like that. You're graduating. You're moving on to a next stage of life. I had huge aspirations for my life. I pictured myself accomplishing great things. I pictured myself being someone. I pictured myself doing the unusual. I wanted relevance. That's what I sought. And so the first thing I did is I went off to college after high school, and I went through that and I completed that. But you know, when I got to my graduating platform in college, I thought this was going to be huge because now I'm fully prepared for the rest of life. I'm fully qualified to do great things. And as I walked out of after getting my diploma and walking away from the president who gave me the diploma at the university, it's sort of like anticlimactic. It was sort of like, wow, this isn't the big thrill I thought it would be. Now I got to go work, and all the fun of school is going to be gone. And why is this such an empty feeling? But you know, I thought, okay, well, at least now is where my life is going to begin to take off. Now is where I'm going to really do something with my life. And you know what? I left college and I sought to do just that. I got into business fairly soon after I started teaching school. I taught for 3 years. Grade 8 or year 8. Taught for 3 years out of university, loved it, but I was very restless because I thought, do I want to spend 40 years of my life doing the same thing without knowing what is the real potential of me? Am I going to find relevance here? Am I going to wake up 10 years down the road and say, is this what I really wanted to do in life? And so I was a bit restless, and so I thought, okay, time to quit before I get too entrenched in this. And my brothers had finished university, and so they said, well, you know, they didn't really know what they wanted to do when they finished, so we said, why don't we start a business? So that makes sense, but we don't know much about business. So we get together and we discuss it, and we figure, okay, why don't we make wood stoves? Because wood stoves, everybody seems to want them back in 1980. Everybody seems to want wood stoves, at least in North America. So we thought, well, how do you make a wood stove? I guess you go buy a welding machine and buy a cutting torch and buy a bit of steel, and you make one. So that's what we did. Little stick welder, and we told my dad, you got to move your car out of the garage because we're taking over. And so we moved into his garage and we drew this thing out, cut it out, welded it up. We thought, wow, that looks great. We put it outside, put a chimney on it, started a fire, and the thing went warped. So we realized we weren't as brilliant as we thought. So we went back to the drawing board, tried to think of all the things that we missed on this one, came up with another one. We wanted to be able to see the fire, and nobody had glass windows on them. So we developed this wood stove and the second prototype. And we stuck it outside and we stood back and we thought, okay, we hope the glass doesn't explode and we hope all these things don't happen. And guess what? It worked. Everything worked. Worked great. Didn't warp. So we thought we're on to a winner here. So we sent my youngest brother out on the road to do a sales trip. None of us were qualified to do any of it, but he goes out, we build this little trailer, put the wood stove, we put a trailer hitch on his car, and off he goes. We don't hear from him for 3 days. We don't know if he went off the side of the road or what. And finally we get a phone call 3 days later. He says, wow, this is great. I've sold 250 of them already. Well, all we have is one little stick welder in my dad's garage, and now we've sold 250 stoves, and how are we going to build them? And so we went down to the welding shop, so we got to buy more of these welding machines. And they says, what are you doing? Well, we're manufacturing stoves. They said, well, you got to use wire welder, not stick welders anyway. So they inform us of how you even, we're just learning how to weld. So they get us all the equipment we need. We don't have any money, so my dad sells his airplane and says, here's $15,000. And that's still not enough to start a plant. And so we go to the bank and they said, are you kidding? You want to borrow money? You're just a bunch of kids. You have no assets. You know how that goes if any of you have tried that before. So we go to the government. We said, hey, we got a great idea. And when they saw that we had 250 units sold, they said, we're going to give you $30,000 grant. Free money. Got that. Then they loaned us another $75,000. So whatever. We put this whole thing together. And meanwhile, the customers are waiting for their stoves the next week because my brother was brilliant enough to promise them the next week. So now we're in big trouble. We sold them big time on what we have, and we don't even have a plant yet. So we're just working around the clock, get this thing going. Make a long story short, it turns into a huge success. We started another plant in the United States. We had one in Canada. We had 90 employees before we knew it. Great success. Everything was going wonderful. Now along with success comes money. And what do you do with the money? Of course, you got to live it up. That'll bring me a good feeling. That'll make me feel relevant. That'll really make me finally feel like I'm worth something to society. So what did we buy? Mercedes, Porsches, and BMWs. We bought all the toys that you could, all the trappings of success, and that's the way we lived our lives. But you know what? Every day was empty. All these toys that we heaped on ourselves, big fat heads, we saw ourselves written up in magazines, the golden boys of alternate energy. What a thrill, we would have thought. But you read it there and it's like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal because we've got this big headache of running these plants and everything else, and we're trying to look important and all that kind of stuff. And I want to tell you something. The thrill that I anticipated was not there. So I was still restless amid huge business success and everybody thinking that.